watching Halenville Live with Fruitcake Tony. Woo!
All right. Okay. What's happening? We are live. It is shortly after 9 o'clock, April the 9th, 2024. Fruitcake Tony, Charles Greene, along. Ed back with us. What's up, Ed?
Fuck yeah. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm happy camper. It's a beautiful day today. It was opening day for my Red Sox at Fenway Park. Unfortunately, they didn't do well, but they did do a nice tribute to Tim Wakefield, who passed, and the 2004 Reverse the Curse team. It's been 20 years since they accomplished that. So
oh, nice.
It was. I didn't attend the game. I had to work, unfortunately, but
how many of the guys from the old team were there?
Oh, a whole bunch. They opened up the flag at the Green Monster, and a whole bunch of them came across the field. And Tim Wakefield's kids were with them. Unfortunately, their mom passed away 4 months after Tim did. So cancer's a bitch. But anyway, yeah, a whole bunch of them. Big Poppy and oh, geez, all of them. I can't think of his name anymore. Manny Ramirez and Mike. Shit, I can't think of his name. Anyway, Euclid was there, and Johnny Damon, and all those guys, all those misfit guys who, beat the had those 8 days in October.
Day. Right on.
Yeah, so opening day.
Nice.
And
nice.
Yeah, it was a nice day outside here up in New England. I'm sure it was nice for you guys down there as well.
Ed, I know I've asked you this before, my friend. How often do you find yourself going to see a Red Sox game?
See, not often. Like I said before, I'm more of a basketball fan, so I go see the Celtics more. Sometimes the Bruins, but no, I don't. I know you're dying inside because you don't have there's a ballpark nearby.
Here. That's
right. And I should go visit Fenway more often. I mean, they've done so many great things over there. They pretty much took over the street that's behind Fenway, and it's an open court kind of area. Full of, they used to have clubs back there and stuff, and now it's all family friendly, and they built up the place so that they could seat more people over the years, because it's the footprint of the ballpark is so small. I think it's the smallest in the major leagues. So they got to try to squeeze. They'll. I hope they never tear it down, but they can only fit so many people unless they go up. And they added the seats on the wall, and they added seats and stuff on the above the grandstand and everything. So
I told Ed, Charles, if I lived up there, I would go all the time.
You'd be living there. You'd have your own section, your
I
own
would go
spot.
all the time.
I'll tell you what, though, Tony. Even though I'm not a huge baseball fan, the times that I did go, when you walk up that ramp from getting your snacks and beers and whatever, you walk up that ramp and it opens up, and you see that grass and you see that wall and
I'm sure.
you see all that old traditional, you see the seat that's painted red in the bleachers where Ted Williams hit the longest home run in Fenway. I think it's 504 feet. You see Pesky's pole. You see all this history all right in front of you.
I have never gone there. I've been to a few of the older major league parks that aren't here anymore, but I've never been to Fenway. No.
I would love to go to Wrigley. Wrigley's on my bucket list.
Yeah. Yeah, nice place.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, so maybe someday, Tony,
We
if
are
you come and visit us, we'll take you on a field trip.
That definitely, we will include a Red Sox game.
Yeah,
It's that time.
I'm having flashbacks from Dodger dogs from my childhood right now.
yeah, there you go.
Good God, man.
It's expensive though. It's one of the most expensive ballparks to, parking and tickets and the food, the beer, everything added all up. It's like the second or third most expensive behind Chicago and New York. So it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got the Bulls here, AAA, and they've started. I hadn't been down there yet, but it'll happen. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Well, dudes, we are slam in the middle of springtime, and a lot of cool things are happening this spring. A lot of golf, of course, but we got some concerts coming up, Charles Greene.
We got a lot of stuff going. Look, I'm still recovering from the fact that I missed Steve Vai and Satriani. I waited 4 months to see that show. I was planning on being there. My son and his fiance got to go, and they had a wonderful time, and I got to listen to him tell me how awesome both those guys are for about 30 minutes on 2 occasions so far since the show. So, anyway, Tony, you and I got a lot of stuff going on, brother.
Yeah.
You really do.
We were in fact live at that show, here on the channel last Tuesday at this time. Oddly enough, you say that you missed Vai and Satch the weekend before. We normally do Show Me Your Pick on Saturday night. They had a show right not half an hour away in Durham at the DPAC on a Saturday
That's right
night.
down the street from your house.
It is.
Wow.
But I knew that I would be doing Show Me Your Pick because it was on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But that particular Saturday, we canceled. I had never canceled. And, by the time it hit my brain, Vai and Satch are right down the street, So, yeah.
It's the thing about it is I'm really disappointed I didn't see it because it was such a truly intimate occasion to be with those two guys. They're unique. They're 2 peas in a pod. The way that they complement one another and can coexist so peacefully with one another, being 2 true guitar gods, is I think it's just a testament to how awesome both of them are.
Yeah. We got to see that. We got to see that live last week, them playing together.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody watches last week's episode on replay, there are a couple of 2 minute and however many second snippets of muted audio. Okay.
Yeah.
Couple of songs that they did while we were covering them live, but there is most of it is still there and it's intact and it's awesome. But there are a couple of muted places there. And so if you watch that on replay from last week and you see that, it's not your computer. It's like
Or your TV, as I learned. I watched the replay and I'm like, "Ah, what happened?" And I have my remote and I'm like, "All right, it's not muted. What's going on?" And then
That's why it pays to be here live for the show live.
I guess so.
That's right. You get to participate in the chat and you get to like that, because when the copyright police come calling, there is no live chat replay.
Nope.
At the tail end of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But what you did show was spectacular, though. It was great. Those guys they're cut from the same cloth, you know.
Special thanks to Jay Turner for that.
Yeah, that was so much fun, man, to see that live like that. And for what Jay did, and thank you, Jay. The audio, it turned out great, I thought, for what it was. We've gone live here and there before with other people. Some good, some not so good, but still awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was last week. That was fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good show.
So around here tonight, it's been 50 years. Okay, 50 years.
God,
are we that old?
I don't feel that old.
50 years since Van Halen started playing clubs. And we're going to look at their journey along the club route from Gazari's in 74 to finally popping through to the Starwood, getting some high school gigs along the way in a Pasadena Civic or two. All along there at Gazari's like that. Interesting how they started getting other gigs while still playing Gazari's, and breaking into other areas, close but not so close, Charles, and all the way, but between 1974, 1975, 76, they played Gazari's primarily more than any other place that they played. But they worked their way once they started getting other gigs and things like that. They worked their way to the whiskey, which when they hit the whiskey, there was no more Gazari's after that. It was
And the whiskey was a step forward, right? A step up.
Very, very much,
right, Charles?
so. But
there's no doubt about that. The thing about Bill Gazari, I was fortunate to see Bill in his latter years.
Oh wow!
He carried himself like a pimp. Okay, he really did. He ran his club. Like a gangster. His persona wasn't fake. I don't want to say he was a fake, because he was a genuine article of Hollywood, of the strip. But it's ironic how much credit he tried to get for starting so many different things when he was behind the 8-ball, as far as that goes, because the Starwood and the whiskey were already there. They were already doing that same thing. He wasn't an original in that sense. He was an original, though, because of the way that his club, when it first opened, promoted the go-go differently than the other clubs. See, he hooked in with the media on television and KHJ radio, 93 KHJ. I mentioned the real Don Steele a couple of weeks ago. He was my favorite DJ growing up. It wasn't him. It was another guy. His name was, oh God, I don't remember it. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't remember the guy's name. He was like one of the original LA DJs before the real Don Steele by a good 10 years. And they had a television show that was basically a dance show. It was called the Hollywood. It was called the Hollywood something. The Hollywood Go-Go is what it was.
Right.
And I remember it was very late night, and my father could never get away with watching that show if he wanted to. He wouldn't watch it in front of my mom. They wouldn't watch it together. It was bona fide taboo. And it was in the golden days of 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, the late 60s into the very beginning of the 70s. The persona of Gazari's was extra special. It was unique to all the other clubs, and they were sort of envious.
Yeah, so we'll get into that history, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're going to get into all of the timelines
awesome.
and the early days, actually, of Gazari. Like he said, you have to understand what kind of club he wanted it to be at first and what it was. Right, Charles?
That's exactly right, brother.
Uh-huh.
So, when Van Halen got there, it was something, but it was on the way to be something else also. But we're going to get into all of that. But, yeah. All right. So, before we open up the chat and see who's hanging out here with us on a Tuesday, and it is Tuesday, and thanks for being here too, by the way. We talk Van Halen and Mammoth WVH here every single Tuesday. Yes, we do, right here. After probably an hour of talking about Van Halen and clubs, we're gonna probably run some cool, nearly impossible Van Halen trivia for tonight. And we're running low, but I do have a couple left. Let's find some prizes for tonight. All right. I'm gonna send you $1 million bill.
Must have
Very
cash.
handsome $1 million Van Halen bill. And these things are, I only have a couple of these left. We're going to give you a ToneChaser guitar pick. If you hadn't got Steve Rosen's book, ToneChaser, go to ToneChaserbook.com. But I'm going to send you one of these and that bill if you win trivia tonight. So hang out. Make yourself comfortable. Thanks for being here. Yeah. Let's open up the chat. Ed, what do you think?
Sure. Chat's going crazy already.
I tell you what we'll do tonight, Ed. We'll let you do roll call.
All right.
How about it?
I will start at the top.
I just opened up. Oh, you're going all the way to the top. Hang on.
I'm going to the top.
All right. You got it.
And we had an early bird, Ryan OU812 in there.
It's good to see you, Ryan. Right on, brother.
Ryan, there's no prize for coming in that early. R2, R3 locking nut.
Right there, bro. It's good to see you.
Bro.
Christopher Live Sova.
Christopher, it's good to see you, my brother.
We got the lovely cousin of mine, Monique.
Hello, Monique.
Monique, you rock. It's good to see
Gretch Zeppelin.
Gretch.
you. Gretch. Right on, man. It's good to see you.
Patty Dill in the chat.
Right on, Patty.
Love
Hello,
Patty. Let's see. Dwight the Hitman.
Good to see you, Dwight. Right on, brother.
Where
Right
is
on,
that
bro.
right at? All right, I'm trying to find area.
Yeah, he's down there. And we got Guitar Man 45.
Good to see you, Bo.
Oh,
Bo rocks.
Trev is in the house. Symmetry.
It's good to see you, Trev.
So we got
There
a lot of
they
the
are.
old, we got a lot of the old OU81 crew in here.
Right on.
nice to see you.
Yeah. Let's see who else we got coming in. All right, Andy Carson,
Right on, Andy. It's good to see you, Andy.
and also Alt G.
Al's G. What's
Al's
up,
G.
dude?
You else. Right on, brother.
I don't see Andy. There he is.
Look at all the people here tonight.
Right on.
Boner's in the chat.
I'm
Right
trying
on,
to follow you.
Boner Jams.
Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, there's Boner James. What's up, dude?
Yeah. I already said Gretch Zeppelin.
Boner blessings.
Let's see. I'm not seeing any newer ones as I scroll down. Oh, Jay Turner just walked in.
Right on, Jay.
Let's see. I don't
Right at
see
the bottom. We
Good
have
to see you, Jay.
Hip Metal Works.
Right on, Hip Metal.
I
We
see
also
the axe.
the Axe.
Also.
Yep.
Good to see you, X. Right on, brother.
Jay Turner.
And I think that's about it.
Answering Jay's question, I did an unboxing. I think was it 2 weeks ago? Has it been 2 shows or
Last
one?
week.
Was it last week's show? I guess it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I unboxed it last week. It's absolutely badass. I'm saving it to wear to Hagar when me and Tony go see Hagar. That's the first time I'm going to wear it brand new.
Right on.
That's great.
Right on, man. Right on.
Jay Turner in the chat is the bass player for the mighty Mean Street. And Mean Street is North Carolina's premier Van Halen tribute band. They are. And they live up to that. Yes, they do. Jay, good to see you, dude.
Very cool. Very cool.
We got to catch a Mean Street show here soon, Charles.
It's in the future. We're going to do that.
Got to be in the near future.
I'm hoping they come back to the Sky Lounge. I enjoyed myself there with you, Tony. That was really
fun. That was
really
fun
cool.
place. Yeah. He's got some gigs on the docket upcoming. We'll pick one out.
Mm-hmm.
We will. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Tony and Ed, but Monique asked the question about the Motley Crue banner there. That's a gift from Ed.
Yep.
That's a gift from Big Ed right there. Super cool.
What Motley
Very cool.
Crue banner?
The
3 nights at the whiskey.
Oh.
Behind
yeah,
him.
That's right. Okay.
And that wall's going to get covered, you guys. It'll be covered before you know it. I know I just keep saying it, but it'll be cool as shit. I promise. I promise. I promise.
His personal decorator is going to be coming in soon.
A couple of the sponsors for shows me and Tony are going to real soon.
Ah, there you go.
Put it that way.
Well, I have noticed. I have noticed though, Charles, is since you said that wall is going to be covered in no time, you were on the opposite side of the room, And now you keep going back and back and back, and now you're almost against the guitar rack. I've noticed that. You keep inching back each show.
It's a changing, what do you call it? A changing area for the time being. Things are getting moved around and stuff.
It's a flowing atmosphere. It's always changing, right?
Hey, no, it's a work in progress right now. That's just how it is.
You should consult with Monique. She'll help you out.
I know. I was trying to think of some witty comeback yet. I was thinking, well, how am I going to respond to that? That would be awesome. And I know darn well she'd make this place look killer. I guarantee it.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me pull something up here.
And I'll say this about this environment in here. That wall behind me may be bare, but I play the hell out of some guitars up in here. And that's really what it's all about.
That's right.
All right. So 50 years ago, Van Halen starts playing Gazaris in Hollywood, Charles.
West Hollywood, let's be specific.
Oh, yeah. Got to be careful.
Yeah. So with the now this club, Charles, Mr. Gazari was big on go-go dancers, and that's how he started.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that group's name? The Sinners or something he had up when he first started back in the 60s?
Yeah, that was they were a television band. There was just this new wave of edgy entertainment that in the mid 60s started hitting the airwaves. And a lot of it was underground. The Sunset Strip was supposed to really be underground. It had always been underground. The speakeasies from the 40s and 50s and stuff like that, it all carried directly into that. But what was really, really neat about it is that Bill Gazari refused to change. He was like a dinosaur in the way he dealt with everything. And so he would, a lot of the girls who were in that club in the very, very beginning, and I would have been 5 years old when that club opened. I can remember maybe 6 or 7 years old, my mother and father deciding what they were going to watch on television and seeing live news coverage from Gazari's when it first opened. They treated this man like royalty. They treated that club like it was the greatest new thing since sliced bread, when a few hundred freaking feet away, the Roxy and the Rainbow Club were sitting there. The Whiskey was down the street, and they were already doing go-go dancers in an incredibly classy atmosphere of I think I've said it before, of a Playboy quality, which was excellent quality. Well, Gazari's did the same thing. But what was unique about Gazari's is they had this television backing. It gave them a certain edge for a very short period of time and made them incredibly popular.
There's some of the dancers right there.
Well, and so a lot of these girls that you're seeing there were playmates.
Okay.
In the early days. Remember Barbie Benton?
Yeah.
Hugh Hefner's wife? That's where she started, was Gazari's.
I heard it was the place to be for a while, especially when it first opened. I
Very
saw a
nice.
video, some documentary about it at one time, and they had like all these movie stars there, and it was a hot spot for a while. There was a line to get in.
Yeah.
You know, Jack Klugman was there, and what's his name? Mitchum, the actor Mitchum. I can't remember his first name.
Robert Mitchum.
Robert Mitchum.
Really?
Robert Mitchum.
Really? That's
They
cool.
showed everybody was smoking, and you know the girls were dancing, and the band's playing, and you know they had that '60s atmosphere, you know, with the go-go boots and the short skirts and the.
You know what was so weird, Ed? All the guys, even though in those old pictures of what would be like from 65 to 70, let's call it.
Yeah.
All those guys look like my dad. They look like they were in their mid 40s. They didn't look like they were young like I was when I was in the clubs, but they were. You see those? I've seen pictures of those guys holding smoking the old style, you know, like the Father Knows Best pipe.
Yeah.
That was you'd see the guys in there smoking those, and I find it shocking to see those old photographs. I look at it and I'm so disconnected from it. It's like my mom and dad, you know. But they were literally in their. Those are 20-year-olds.
And they got dressed up.
25.
They wore a suit and tie and everything.
Yeah. And that just goes to show you that was the standard in those days.
Yeah.
But I remember when Bill started sporting the gangster look.
Yeah,
See,
look at him.
he didn't look like a gangster. In those days, he looked respectable. He wore a suit and tie,
Yep.
and Mario Maglione was his direct competition.
Right.
And they spent the better part of 2 decades trying to one-up each other.
Now, was he connected? Or did he just act it?
I don't know that much about him. I would
Okay.
say this, though. The early owners of that club were connected, just like they were at the Starwood and they were at the Troubadour and all of them. So, you know, the early clubs coming out of the 40s and 50s, the speakeasies, all of that, these are strictly they're just continuations of that. Some of those old things do carry into them. But he played the persona perfectly, and he embraced it. He was a gangster as far as anyone. If you heard about Gazari's and you heard about Bill Gazari's, especially in the late 70s, around the Van Halen era,
Mm-hmm.
he looked like Al Capone. He came off it, and he had a girl on his arm, if not one girl, 2 blondes, all the time.
Dressed like that.
All the time.
Yeah.
And it was a persona that he created, and he carried that until the day he died.
And he drove a big Cadillac.
But when Van Halen got in there in 1974 in April, they played there for a year before. I mean, they played there exclusively for a year. They were the house band until they got another gig, and they got a gig at Pasadena High School, and that was May of the following year. Yeah.
So from what I've seen, they only played like 8 songs a night, and they had a pretty their set list didn't change too much. They played a lot of Deep Purple, and they played some Edgar Winter Group songs. They played Walk Away from the James Gang, Can't Get Enough from Bad Company. If You Can't Rock Me from the Stones.
But that was the criteria though. It was a dance club.
Yep.
I mean, but they had to do that. But the neat thing about the dance club was that they had nightly but David Lee Roth would MC the dance contests.
I can see that.
Is where he got, so I mean, you hone your chops like that, Dave wasn't scared of crowds or public speaking or anything. And I mean, to MC a dance contest, and ultimately, Charles, bikini contest is where that ended up, but we'll get to that. I'm jumping ahead of myself.
Hey, we got some people in the chat just came in. Hefe 1977.
Hefe, welcome. Right on. Welcome.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Pretty close.
Mitch Heyman.
Mitch, what's up?
Mitch, right on, brother.
He came in as well.
Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, so
right on.
But they also Van Halen also played "Make It Last" by Montrose a lot. They loved covering Montrose.
Yeah. But they couldn't do
what they
wanted to do.
Yeah.
They really couldn't, but they had to do. And they had a couple of hundred songs that they could do,
Mm-hmm.
but they, Roth really, Roth got him in there. Bill really liked Dave.
I'm sure they got along well.
Called him Van.
That's right.
Yeah. But the jump from Gazari's to the Starwood finally, and then other things started happening. Walter Mitty's Rock and Roll Emporium, they went up there, and that's, those dates that there's like 8 or 10 of those. And but they did different things. Pasadena Civic a couple of times until they got to the whiskey, but that didn't happen until 1976.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it didn't. But they, it was fair to say, as Charles said, once they got to the whiskey with those owners, there was no going back to Gazari's at that point, right, Charles?
Well, it would have been, I'm going to say it like this. There were only 1 or 2 venues in Los Angeles that could call themselves at the same caliber as the whiskey. One was the Starwood. The Starwood was quite nice. The Troubadour for a while was okay. It was quite nice too. But Gazari's was never, after the initial 5-6 year initial start. By 71, 72, Gazari's was going downhill. They just were, from what they originally were. As far as you want to talk about their status in the original, they were never that way again. As far as I saw it, it just never was. I was telling the guys in the green room, I can remember being like 11, 12 years old and having my older brother, who I looked up to, sitting, he'd be like in the living room of my parents' house talking to his friends. They had gone to the clubs, they'd gone clubbing, and they would tell stories. They'd be talking about Gazari's. I've heard them tell wonderful stories about many places, but I vividly remember nothing but war stories and dramatic stories about Gazari's from my brother's generation, which is 10 years before me. So I kind of grew up with Gazari's. The very first rock club in LA I ever went to was Gazari's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I saw Smile. Smile was, I think, one of the first rock bands I ever saw live.
Nice.
And
that's cool.
And Snow was a thing. Snow was a freaking thing in those days. Carlos Cavazo was playing in Snow in the late 70s. That was his thing.
You didn't know how good you had it, Charles. Going to see Carlos in Snow and going surfing all day. Dude.
It was wonderful. I'll say that. I didn't realize really how cool. I knew it was cool. Okay, I knew it was cool. But I didn't realize just how fond of it I would. I didn't realize I'd be here with you guys talking about this shit 40 years. I have no idea.
Right.
But that being said, Walter Mitty's, yes, Hefe, Walter Mitty's had the very best wet t-shirt contests. They were highly advertised, just like Gazari's in like 81, 82, 83, 84, all through 89, I believe. No, maybe 87, 88. They were still doing the wet t-shirt contest. But when Ed was talking about Dave emceeing a bikini contest, I believe was what they did, because they weren't doing the wet t-shirt in those days. I don't think so. In the mid 70s.
Not yet. No.
They started that until about 81, 82. They became popular. At least as far as my memory goes. But I've got to tell you, I think Kurt 5150 asked us a question: if we could go back in time and see something that pertained to Edward Van Halen, what it would be. I'll tell you what, I'd like to change my answer. I think I said the Hollywood Bowl, their last show. Mm-hmm. I would want to go to the Gazari's on a night where Dave was emceeing a bikini contest and watch the band play their cover tunes.
Yeah.
That would be priceless.
Yeah, it was.
Just young and raw and hungry for fame. Must have been great. There are literally in 3 years' time, there are so few dates scattered in between the Gazari's dates. Now you have to understand that Van Halen played Gazari's every week all year. I mean, it's all year, the whole year, the first year in 74. And then they stayed the house band 74, 75, 76. But these other gigs, the high school gigs and the Civic, and they finally broke up into Walter Mitty's in April of 76, and there's 6 dates there. But once they did that, they're still the house band at Gazari's, and they finally break into the Starwood. Okay. And then it seems that things really start happening, and not just a few short months later. Van Halen played all of October of 76 at Gazari's, but after that, they got their first gig at the Whiskey Charles, and that was it. It was all over.
It was no more Gazari's.
I bet, Bill, I would love.
But even though they had played other places, and he knew that, even the Starwood, why
that ate at him?
Come back.
That ate him extra bad. Bill did not like that. He wouldn't want Mario to one-up him. But he did. They treated, when you made, okay. Bill was all about money. His whole shtick, the whole reason he changed from this to that to the other thing, was strictly to bring people into the club. Because at the end of the day, it's all about revenue.
Oh, yeah.
Period. With both Bill and Mario. They were both revenue guys. Those were money men. That's how I referred to Mario. He was the money man. And, by the way, I think Mitch asked a question a ways back. I didn't want to forget it. He asked about a guy, I believe his name was Eddie Valentine. He was one of the original owners of the whiskey. When I was there, it was a guy named, it was Mario, and it was Lou Adler was the sort of the main owner, him and Mario. And then there was one other silent partner, and I don't know their name. There was a man. I don't know his name. I never laid eyes on him. And I laid eyes on Lou Adler one time. Only one time. He was at the Rainbow eating late night with Mario. And they were talking with one another upstairs. And I got to go upstairs. I had to give Mario a message. I think Red Keller had just fired me. And I didn't lose my job, but for that moment I was fired because he fired me. And so I had to go up there. Louis told me to go up and talk to Red at the Roxy. And so I went up to the Roxy and I went into the office and they're like, he's next door with Lou. And I said, Lou? They go, Lou Adler. I didn't even know who Lou Adler was. That's the first time I'd ever heard his name. I thought, Mario was the king of everything at the time. Information wasn't as fluid as it is now. And so I went up there and I went over to talk to him, and him and Mr. Adler were sitting up there. I got to say hello to him,
Who is that right there in the picture, Charles?
That would be Bill Gazari. And the guy on the right, I believe that is a young.
Who's that chick?
That ain't no chick, baby.
She's pretty.
Yeah, no, that's
it's Vince, right?
Is that Brett Michaels?
Oh, is that Brett?
It's not Brett.
I thought it was Vince.
It's not Vince either.
No, that's not Vince.
It's not Vince or Brett.
Anybody
in the chat?
Wait a minute. That's Janie Lane. Is that Janie?
No.
Oh, you should have used this for trivia.
I don't know. I'll tell you what.
I can't place the face. I can't.
I first looked, I thought Brett Michaels. That's the first thing I thought.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of people.
Then I thought Janie, but the hair's not quite right for Janie, especially at that time. No, that's not.
It might be.
Oh, it could be. Maybe. It's Jay Hannon.
Could be Jay Hannon. Pre-Gizmachi. We're talking pre-Gizmachi here.
Stevie Rochelle. That's what Mr. Mick says.
Okay.
What's happening, dude?
Right on, Mr. Mickey Rob.
What's up?
There he is.
But that's Bill standing with him there. That's exactly what he looked like all through the 80s. He's a character, an absolute character. When I say he's a money man, he was so out of his decade. His decades were the 40s and the 50s. He came into the 60s and 70s with this new club and managing it and owning it. And the thing about it is his persona back in the 70s and the 60s was a whole lot stronger than I believe it was in the latter years of him being Bill Gazari, the godfather of rock and roll. He was a mover and a shaker. He was connected to the television industry back in the 60s and the late 50s.
Was he like a Colonel Tom Parker?
Very much so. But he also owned Gazari's. I think I remember this.
Hey,
I think
Quentin.
he owned it with his sister or something. He was a co-owner of Gazari's with his sister. Quentin, what's going on, brother? Right on, man.
Quentin. QFJ, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did I hear this correctly? I don't know if I saw it. You know that documentary, The Decline of Western Civilization, The Metal Years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if I heard it there or I read it somewhere. Did Bill make bands pay to play? Like pay
he didn't start it, but he was one of the first who did. Absolutely.
Explain that concept.
So I guess
to Ed and everyone, Charles, if you will.
Well,
yeah, go
play deal.
Well, here's the thing. They would take a band, and let's say that there were 4 bands playing on the venue that night. Well, some of the bands, the more popular of the bands on there who had a bigger following, would be forced, in order to play the club, they had to buy tickets. And they got a reduced price on, let me see if I get this right.
you start on a Monday night too. You don't.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It depends on the night
Oh.
of the week. It depends on how big your following was. How did you generate any revenue or anything? But the literal kings of pay to play, bands like Guns N' Roses, absolutely. All the early bands that played in all the clubs had to deal with pay to play. I remember when Motley Crue didn't have to pay to play anymore.
So how does that work? They buy the tickets and then what?
They
How
They get the tickets, they sell them to their fans.
Right.
And that
They
covers
sell them.
their price. Yes.
So they don't.
Here's what it did. Interesting though. This is what it does for the band. Do you know bands like Motley Crue and Rat? Oh fuck yeah! I remember fucking Steven and Robin trying to parlay tickets off at the last minute. I can remember that shit. God, I just had a flashback from that shit. Anyway. What it did, you guys, is it honed the band's ability to do several things: merchandise and market themselves in-house.
Self-promotion.
It forced them to get out. It forced them to get in their fucking cars and go. And all those bills that you saw stapled up by the thousands, they would send their friends to all the high schools and colleges, have them go through the lockers. In those days, there was you just walked onto the campus, you walked down to the hallways, the lockers were there, you shoved shit in every locker, and you left. Nobody even spoke to you unless you saw a friend. That's how it was in those days. That's what bands had to do to actually, or they had to pay out of pocket, which was a lot of money.
Both.
Yeah, and it cost money. But if they did their legwork.
What that did, though, and you've heard Charles speak about this in examples for years here, is it creates competition on the street amongst the bands, amongst fans, amongst cliques, amongst
Wow. Kind of like in the movie Rockstar.
So
where they putting bills on people's cars and the other band would take it off and put theirs there.
and what artist took that concept to an entirely different level and kicked the shit out of the industry?
Van Halen?
Kid Rock.
Oh, Kid Rock. Kid Rock.
He merchandised and marketed himself by himself. His original work after he left Matchbox 20, which still blows my mind. But anyway, after he left Matchbox 20, he was self-promoted. He made his first mass money without a record label. He made it on his own, quite literally.
Damn.
And it was impressive.
Now, did Van Halen have to pay to play at all? Did they have to do all that shit?
Sure they did.
Yeah?
Sure they did. They had to follow the same rules that every other band did.
But they really, during that era, Charles, is when that pay to play, when that our form of rock really started, and the Hollywood clubs really started to heat back up. I mean, where the weekends were just swamped in the 80s like that, Yeah,
I can remember Robin with a stack of fucking tickets, pissed off. Because there were rough days for Rat, guys, in the beginning. I mean, I've seen Rat with 5 different drummers, bass players, all kinds of guitar players, just in or out. It would change every time I saw them for 7 to 8 shows at the Whiskey. They had a different drummer or a different member in the band. They were just constant. But they had this fan base. There was a big fan base, and it was Motley Crue's fan base, ironically. Same people at the same shows. I'm just going to let's just call it rockers like us. Guys, that's really what it was. It was just a bunch of dedicated rockers who were cool to the scene, and they would come down to the clubs, and whenever a good band was playing, like Rat or, somebody, there were lots of bands other than Rat that were really good. There was a la carte. There was also, I talk about Smile. I talk about Snow. There was a band called Smile. They were a great rock band. They had great original tunes. They were very popular. They had a following. Very cool.
Yeah, but it became the pay to play. You bring your own crowd once, Bill saw that happen, and Van Halen, they I don't think they get enough credit for what they did,
Well,
before
now
they started playing clubs.
When they got a solid, part of what it means to be called the house band in a rock club, it means you no longer pay to play. It means you get paid to play.
Okay.
Okay. And sometimes getting paid to play doesn't mean you get like money. You may get a free meal.
A few beers.
Seriously.
Well, but also too, the clubs that had house bands weren't the elite rock clubs either, though.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
So it was better than they were trying to get other gigs, but yeah, they were glad that they had the Gazari's house gig. So
yeah, giving regular exposure to Van Halen was important. It's funny, they had this massive fan base in their last hiatus at Gazari's. They were getting great exposure. They were a known band by the masses in California at that point. Known for throwing the most outrageous parties. Their reputation was established well by the time they left Gazari's. But stepping across the line there and coming into Mario's world was just a breath of fresh air for Van Halen. I'm sorry, it just was.
Wow, I saw a phone booth.
It's just a better environment. I don't know how a good example would be the way Mario embraced the Doors. He embraced the Doors like he did Van Halen. He did that to a lot of bands. And individual rockers like Grace Slick and Mama Cass Elliot and all the greats from the golden age of rock. He did the same thing with Motley Crue. He interesting enough, he was real friendly with Stephen Pearcy, but he wasn't as friendly with Robin as he was. You would think he would be. I don't know why that was exactly. I think it was merely more that Robin just wasn't.
Maybe like the singers.
Well, Stephen was the mouthpiece for Rat. Okay, you go to talk to anyone in the Rat organization in those days, you would talk to Stephen. He's the reason Rat's a band. He's the reason they stayed together.
That's why he didn't talk to Robin. Because Stephen was the man.
Yeah. Well, Robin was, he wasn't a shy guy. He really wasn't. But he wouldn't go out of his way typically to talk to people. He was incredibly driven. From the day I met him, he had one thing on his mind. He wanted to be a rock star. Let me rephrase that. He wanted to be in a killer rock band and then hopefully become a rock star. He used to emulate KK Downing a little bit from Priest. And he would sit there and he'd say things like, one of these days, Chucky boy, he says, that's going to be me. And I'd look at him and like, yeah, bro. Fuck, I didn't think it would happen. They were good, but in those days there was no Warren, okay? They were a rock band that was very popular and had some great songs.
So that's the building now, right, Tony?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
That's the building now. The old Gazari's got torn down, and that got built, right? Isn't that like One Oak or something?
Well, we were talking about the Northridge earthquake, and I think it was 94, 95 or something like that. I was in Hawaii when the Northridge earthquake happened. I remember my brother calling him and asking if he had slid off into the ocean, joking about it. I grew up with earthquakes. In LA, it was normal for me to wake up in the early morning to the house shaking and coming out of a dream and my dad screaming, get into a doorway. I mean, that shit was normal for me as a kid.
But that building is not the original.
It is not.
It was damaged during the earthquake and they tore it down.
Completely new.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the names. It's been 3 or 4 different things since it was Gazari.
The Key Club, or yeah.
I also heard some rumors about the alleyway on the left-hand side of the building where Dave would bring some of his female friends for a little hanky-panky.
Alleyways in Hollywood.
Apparently
That's not the only alleyway story, Ed.
Yeah.
I think every alley in Hollywood, in LA, has
tells
got
a story. Yeah.
Tale to tell, right?
Right.
Nice. Yeah.
Have we missed anyone new in the chat? Just out of curiosity, guys.
I hope we haven't.
I think the last
just join and say hello, please.
I think it was Mr. Mick was the last new one.
Okay. All righty.
Yeah, it's nice to see everybody.
Yeah.
It's been 50 years. We're talking about the 50-year mark that Van Halen started playing clubs. So, yeah, gosh, April 8th, April 4th, 1974. That was 50. God.
Wow.
Are we that old, man?
Crazy.
I
think I hear a drill, Tony. You hear a drill?
I don't.
Oh, I thought I heard a drill. I don't know. Must be on my end. I don't know.
I have heard an echo once or twice. Have you guys heard an echo in my voice?
I've heard
a little bit. I'm hearing a crackling. I'm hearing like a crackling.
I'm hearing an echo in my voice. I don't hear it when you guys, but yeah.
I'm hearing an echo of my voice too.
Oh, okay.
Charles, do you have a delay on or something in your? No. Okay.
Nope. And I'm just using the regular. I'm not using the mic or any of that. Let me double check everything, but my settings, I've already gone in and double checked. Everything's.
All right. We are while we're checking settings. I'm going to check mine too.
I hear that drill again.
Yeah, that's the signal. You can slide off to the fridge now. Be right back. Let me, hang on.
Yeah, my settings look good. They're still the same.
Yeah, and echo cancellation is on, Mitch. I'm multitasking, Ed. I'm multitasking with this.
Hey now. All right.
Okay.
Maybe it's fixed. Okay, so the drill sound is the signal for, and don't burn yourself over there, Ed. I know I lit the torch earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes a nice hand warmer.
Yeah. Yeah, so be careful. That is the signal. We're going to do some nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. Neither of those guys got it earlier. I don't understand.
But I will say I felt like an idiot after I heard the answer.
Yep, me too.
All right. Nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. So
WDFA 1977. I appreciate that, brother.
We're going to score you a ToneChaser book.com. ToneChaserbook.com, right, Charles? We're going to score you a ToneChaser guitar pick. It's got this on the other side. And this is courtesy of Mr. Steve Rosen. If you don't have your copy of ToneChaser yet, it is in its 3rd edition, and the latest cover has the Purple Kramer multi-tape guitar, a lovely picture of it on it. So ToneChaserbook.com is where you need to go. Yeah. It is a jewel. If you're a Van Halen fan, it is a jewel. It is.
It keeps changing every new issue, just enough to where it's got enough flash to where I want that issue as well. Is it wrong to own every single?
No, it's not.
I think I have the first edition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I've got a first edition. We were all very fortunate and
And
blessed.
signed.
Yes.
Signed by the man.
I'll tell you, I do a lot of reading, but that book is my coffee table book. It stays right on there.
You know, it's interesting how unique that book is. All the good Van Halen books we love all have something special. And that's a special book. Special book.
Look how many musicians own that book too. I mean, God, have you seen his posts? You know, everybody's holding it up on stage and backstage and everywhere.
Yeah,
It's everywhere.
You know, it's interesting. You think about Steve Rosen, his legacy. Let's say 20, 30 years from now, he's going to be the damn man. Still,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So tonight's nearly impossible Van Halen trivia is brought to you and me by Legend Picks. So if you want custom guitar picks like these people do,
Oh yeah.
and like we do, and you might too, there's a link in the description. You'll find it. Hit him up and custom order your big fat sack of custom guitar picks like that right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Monique, tell your mother I said hello and thank you. That's really cool.
Before we dive into trivia, and thanks for being patient tonight for trivia. We give you time to go to the fridge. If I need more tea or more coffee and I'm watching, surely so that's why we do that. But before I forget, I want to spend a second because it is so recent. We will talk about this more on this channel on our sister show, Show Me Your Pick. We do that on Saturday nights here on the channel, 9:00 p.m. Eastern. But we'll talk more about that. But let me say, before we start trivia, if you are the winner tonight, there's a trivia winner's email down below. Email me your name and address so I can mail that trivia prize pack out to you tomorrow. And if you hadn't won here recently, there's a bunch of new guitar picks from the guys in the crew, and we'll sweeten it up and we'll send a bunch of guitar picks, not just a ToneChaser. All right, so keep that in mind as we venture in trivia, and we're going there right now. But I want to say something this week, and it was kind of a shocker to me. I'm here in North Carolina, and this band was local to me, and I followed these guys since before they even started, before they ever got signed, when they were in other bands. Perry Richardson, member of this band, was a guest on our channel here a couple of years ago. But the band Firehouse, this past week, we lost the vocalist CJ Snare, unfortunately. So rest in peace, CJ. Great voice.
He was in his early 60s, wasn't he? 60.
Yeah. I think 60 or 62, something like that.
Yeah, I think he was like my age, I believe. I believe so.
But we're going to talk more about this weekend on Show Me Your Pick. But I did want to mention that, it did come to such a shock. But yeah, rest in peace, CJ. We'll miss you, dude. Love the music. Thank you for the music, man. Thank you, dude.
Beautiful voice.
Unique voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had been dealing with cancer for a while, Monique, and then he suffered a heart attack
Yep.
from the complications of the cancer. I think, if I heard that correctly.
All right. Let's roll on into trivia.
Oh, one more
All right.
thing. If you guys are on my Facebook, check out the video I posted about CJ. Him singing at the piano. Unbelievable. Gives you goosebumps.
Awesome. Check that
Nice.
out, bro.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tony.
Oh no. Okay. So how we do this? The first correct answer, you type in. I'm going to show you a question on the screen. You're going to type in the answer over there in the chat. You got to type quick because the first correct answer that we see is the winner. So you got to know it and be quick. So you got to do both. But this question requires the hardcore Van Halen fans, and this is, if you are a hardcore Van Halen fan, you'll get this like that. All right, I'll say that. So this question will show your colors.
It showed mine.
Like that. Yeah. No, but really though, some of you will scratch your head and some of you will have a typing contest. All right. So here we go. Good luck. First correct that we see. All right. Straight up and straight out, as a Van Halen fan, when you hear the words Voodoo Queen, you should automatically think what? Bring it.
It's a really good question, Tony.
Not Valerie Bertinelli. Oh, I see it.
Jay Turner.
Look at that. Look at that.
Gee, how does he know that?
From the band with the same name. Jeez.
I know, Jay Turner.
Right on, R2, R3. Right behind him, bro.
Yeah. So Voodoo Queen is a song that they worked up that eventually became Main Street. All right. So Jay Turner, I'm going to mail you.
Hey, you rock,
Blue Mox, good to see you, sir.
Blue Mox, right on, brother.
Hey.
R2, you were right behind him, bro. You were that close. You should have hit refresh.
Wow. That was close.
Doesn't hurt.
All right. Okay. Yes, we are running low. I think a couple of more contests worth, and the ToneChaser guitar picks will be gone. And from what I'm hearing, I don't think there's any immediately right now. So if you want a ToneChaser guitar pick, tune in next Tuesday and the Tuesday after, because they are going away from here. They are hitting the road. Oh man. So speaking of hitting the road, Charles, we are sitting on 1 month from right now, May the 10th. We're going to be heading west, just like you see, to the mountains of North Carolina. I don't think that's the mountains in North Carolina, but it looks just like that as you're getting near. And it's, for me, to get this view right here, West Charles, is probably a couple of hours, Yeah.
Jay Turner asked a question. If I remember a band from the late 80s at Gazari's called Ocean. No. I remember a band in the late 70s that was primarily big in the late 70s that I believe I saw maybe one time, around 81 possibly. The actor Edward James Olmos. He had been in that band for a long time, and the word ocean was in their name. That's the only band that I can remember with the word ocean in it off the top of my head, bro.
Pacific Ocean. Right?
Maybe that might be it. That might be it. But they were around. They used to play Gazari's.
Eddie James and the Pacific Ocean was the name of the band.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
How the hell did you pull that out of your hat like that, brother? That was awesome. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And his acting career sort of took off right around that same time. I'm a little sketchy on it. I hadn't thought about him in a million years until you said the word ocean. Wow, what a trip, Jay. Yeah, bro.
What? I don't even remember what TV show he was on. What was it? A cop show or something?
Well, he did that movie. Made in America or something like that. The controversial movie.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
American Made, I think is what it was called. Not Made in America. American Made. America Me. America Me is the movie that he did.
Oh, he was in like Miami Vice or something, right?
Yeah, he played like a detective too, like a.
Yeah, some detective on. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, that's a trip. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
So that club, Ed, that bill passed in 1991.
Yeah.
And the club closed just the following year, 2 years later. I mean,
he was that club.
I guess that's kind of poetic. He dies and club goes with him.
You know what was really cool? My last memories of Bill Gazari were around my vivid memories of him were around 86, 87. He wasn't in great health. He wasn't. And he was looking pretty bad, actually, in my opinion. But the band Warrant was kicking fucking ass. And they were a staple for a minute. Bill Gazari, he saw their talent. He snatched them up to get as much heat from them as he could. He literally did, because they were on fire. And it's interesting. I'm thinking every time I think of Warrant now, in my later years, I think of John Mancuda. And the reason I do that is because he was fortunate enough, and I'm envious as hell because of all the times I saw Warrant, I was never standing close enough for Janie to jump off a stage and fucking sing in my face with a microphone. And I got to watch him do it, but never got it personally. So anyway.
He sang to Mancuda?
You damn right. John has a very special connection to the band Warrant. He has a special connection to a lot of bands.
Oh, that's cool.
From the 80s. Very impressive, actually. But he got this close to Janie's face, and Janie would sing in the crowd, surfing the crowd, essentially.
Oh, that's cool.
He was quite literally, I've said it before, the greatest frontman package ever to hit Sunset Boulevard in the 80s. I stand by that today. Period. Absolutely. He was the total package.
So talking about Gazaris and all these bands starting there pretty much, does that mean that this place was a basement sort of stepping stone? You know, so you begin to play at Gazari's and you cut your teeth there, and then you move up. Did all bands do that? Is that how it worked?
Not all bands. Van Halen did.
Right.
But
If you had a following and you were any good, the system doorways would just open for you. That's really how it happened. If you put the time in and you were there and you were good, doorways would open.
In other words, were you most likely to was Gazari's more open to newer bands than the Whiskey or the Starwood or the Rainbow or?
No,
they had
that why-
house bands. They had house bands a lot.
Okay.
I mean, Warrant was one. They had house
Right.
bands.
Yeah, if you were an LA band, you played any club you could possibly get into. You auditioned at every club. You did your legwork and got out there. You know, the number of people who came into the Whiskey to hand Michelle a cassette tape for an opportunity to get to play there were hundreds and hundreds of them. Countless.
I guess what I'm getting at were the other clubs more picky at who they chose to play there than Gazari's?
No, Gazari was easier to get into Gazari's.
That's what I mean.
At a period of time. It was easier to play Gazari's in 82 than it was to get into the Whiskey. I can say that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's the truth. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at this letter that Bill wrote, and he lists all the dates, 1974, 75, 76, that Van Halen played there. That's a lot of dates.
So what was the purpose of this letter? Was it a letter to people just showing like
maybe Charles can explain this a little better in a different wording.
Mm-hmm.
But it's big. Van Halen at the Whiskey, the New Year's, the last show before the world tour. They Mario wanted to claim Van Halen, but so did Bill, right, Charles?
When I think of Van Halen stepping stones, having grown up in LA, Van Halen's a thing. There was no one club that can take and say we were the, this is where Van Halen camped out. Period. If you were going to go that route, they played a lot at Gazari's. They played a lot of shows at Gazari's. They put a lot of time in at Gazari's. They were used by Bill. See, in their earlier days, they were being used more than they were using people. I mean, they had a reputation and everything, but let's face it, they were taking advantage of all the damn time, constantly. So when I think of the Gazari's time, I think of a learning time. I think of a time of growth. I think of a time of them honing their craft. And in the back of my mind, I always think of that's where they got all those great cover tunes that they ended up putting on all those albums that we love.
And that was a transition between Mark Stone.
Yes.
It was a transition between Mark Stone and Michael Anthony. And
yes.
That there.
Yes.
That right there is Mark Stone holding the original Van Halen logo that he made.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
And it's funny because in those days, we're looking at that now and we're in everything's state of the art now. That's high tech shit right there that he's holding. It took him a while to actually do that. Probably had a drafting table and straight edges in it. It was a whole big production for him to go through all that. That's priceless, man. Absolutely priceless.
Yeah, but it was a learning thing though. But I do think that as far as Dave being the front man, with the dance, emceeing the dance contest and the bikini, oh dude, that was priceless to them and their success, I believe. I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
We go down this road a lot. Would Van Halen, the band Van Halen, have been successful if they didn't have that equation of those four guys? Would they have made it? And I don't think they would have. I think Eddie and Alex would have ended up in another band, possibly losing the Van Halen name and being known as the Van Halen brothers in rock history, in the band, whatever. The reason
very likely.
The reason they made it is because of a bunch of factors. The songs, first and foremost, were absolutely the most kick-ass shit on the market. Period. And that's why everybody wanted to sound and have the vibe Van Halen had, because that's the energy the music created. If Dave hadn't been Dave, they would have looked like every other damn rock band. He stood out like a sore thumb. He was obnoxious. Shenanigans are the word I think of when I think of Dave. I saw him several times on the strip, in clubs, in various places. And he always had people with him for the most part. And this one time he had this posse. I'm going to call it a posse of people. There was 9-10 people with him. But these people were characters. Okay, they were characters from L.A. All kinds of. They were not all the same. They were it was like a circus group. I don't know, I'm not that crazy, but kind of. And they all had their thing, and they were a little weird. They were a little strange. But whatever Dave was doing around them at the time, he was absorbing whatever. He was using them for some reason, because that's kind of his. Guys, he absorbs shit around him. His mind's going a million miles a minute, and then he throws it out there to us in whatever fashion he wants to. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, but all the Dave and putting on the Dave aside, in those days, and as a young man, and even as an adult, David Lee Roth in those days, to get around in these clubs, he was very well spoken, and he knew people. And his dad had money, and
he had a vocabulary, and he could talk.
He did exactly right, and that's.
And Monique,
it got them places. It did. It got them places.
You're absolutely right about that. Monique points something out. I said something earlier. The Van Halen brothers might have ended up in some other band. Then she points out the Van Halen boys would never take a back seat to another band. You know what? I digress, because that's absolutely correct. Yeah. But they'd have done something else, and they may not have.
Right.
They may not have reached. I don't believe they would have.
They may not have reached.
Because the package was. There were a lot of bands, guys. A lot of great guitar players, a lot of great singers, a lot of great bands that had. I remember the first time I saw Wasp. They weren't even called Wasp. They were called, don't tell me. Circus. Did I get that right?
Oh, no kidding.
Circus. That's before they were Wasp. Did they have the same vibe? No. Was Blackie a badass? Fuck yeah. Just didn't have the right equation. It was the song. You got to have the songs, guys. You got to have the songs.
Van Halen did.
Yes, they did.
they had the whole package though.
The whole package.
They did, and whether they even themselves knew it or not, they had the whole package. I mean, a fan of that style of music, you could look at another band on the strip like Wasp and say I I don't like this kind of, I like Van Halen or, like this. Um, it's easy to say that about one style, but Van Halen, they had the songs and they were popular at the time, whether that was intent or not. It was good timing after the fact, but the whole world, I mean, I loved that music when it first came out. I think the whole world did.
Think about what little guitars would be like if it didn't have Dave.
That's true.
I'm sorry. The flavor he adds to that is just, and the flavor Eddie adds to it is obviously priceless. That's what I mean about a good song. You come up with an album. How many times have we gone and bought an album and it's got one or two songs on it that are, those are the main songs. That's what's driving the sale of the album or the CD. It used to be albums in our day, old. And it had one or two songs on it. And then a couple that were okay. And then all the rest was just obviously just, they're just songs and they're great and you love the band and you listen to them, but those are not the songs.
The filler.
Yeah, there's lots of those bands. But to have an album that actually has 5, 6, 8 great songs on it, Van Halen 1 was unheard of to my generation because every song was fantastic. Every song.
And everybody in the world got into that old Van Halen. Not because of his songs, not because of his songs, and we loved all of those albums. We did. I mean, it wasn't any one particular song. It was one after the other.
There was a band. I saw them one time. They opened for Sabbath, Ronnie Dio Sabbath. It was at a festival I was at. And the lead singer, name of the band was called Russia. They were out for one hot minute in the early 80s.
Lewis, what's up, dude?
Good to see you, Lewis. Right on, bro.
Lewis.
And the lead singer, and I can't think of his name, but he was a David Lee Roth clone. He was a clone. He acted like Dave. He would come out, but his shtick was he would start undressing himself. He'd come out and he'd man, it's hot out here. Let's get our clothes off and pull his boots off and throw them at the audience. And at the end of the show, he'd be there in a pair of jeans, stripped down and shaking his long hair. Real good looking guy. Their songs sucked. Okay, they sucked. They didn't have great songs. They had a moment where they had a couple of songs that were charting a little bit, but nobody liked them. And they just faded away. Good guitar player, great bass player, great drummer. I remember it like it was yesterday. Sabbath came on the stage and just blew them off the wall. Just gone. I never saw them again. And the reason was because they didn't have the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have the tunes. Yeah, you got to have the tunes. But Van Halen did so well.
Remember the first time you heard "Light Up the Sky"? That was better than Christmas. It really was. That was something else.
I know.
Something else.
Yeah, I wore my copy of Van Halen 2 out.
Hey, Wayno in the chat. It's good to see you, Wayno.
I know,
Hey, Wayno.
Yeah, they did. If it wasn't, though, Charles, for Gazari's and landing that then, they had already been everywhere else. I mean, you read in that letter from Bill that Van Halen had been 19 times they were turned down.
Wow.
So he saw something in them. He liked Dave.
Talking about Bill Gazari?
Yeah, and they spent a very long time, a good 3-year span, you know. But had it not been for that club and their time there, you know, those dates, if you look at all their date history and when they started adding other dates, high school dates and this and that, you know, to be playing Gazari's every damn night gave them steam to go out, you know. But had they not had that house gig thing, you know, they might have still been struggling to get gigs, still playing backyard parties. And
well, I will say this. They could have easily, for the 3 years they were at Gazari's, they could have easily worked their way into the whiskey at that same time. They eventually ended up doing that. And I'll say this, for a couple of years before they actually did it, it was at the behest of Bill Gazari not to do it. And Mario had respect for Bill. They respected one another. They showed respect, and they definitely would not try to poach a band from one another and get caught at it. Let's just put it that way. It was beneath Mario to do that. I can say that flat out. He didn't need to. Okay? But had Gazari's not been there, they would have most definitely welcomed Van Halen at some point in some fashion. And they could have easily done it before then. You know, Snow was the house band the last 2 years that Van Halen's playing Gazari's as a house band and Snow's playing the whiskey as a house band. That could have very easily been flipped. No problem. No problem at all. So and it actually ended up happening.
That letter that Tony showed, I read it, and he was mad. He was pissed because the Sunday Times, they wrote an article about the LA rock club scene, and they didn't include Gazari's. So his point was, hey, we signed this band 1974 to all these dates, Van Halen. And he pretty much, you know, just wanted to show them that he was relevant. Because maybe he was considered his club was considered the stepchild of the Sunset Boulevard. You know,
and what's that letter dated? What's the date on that letter again?
April 23rd, 1979.
Yeah, they didn't have a great reputation in the late 70s.
And he talks about all the advertising he's done, hundreds of thousands of dollars with all the local radio stations.
It's true.
He did do a lot of that, radio and TV.
And he also played first the following bands: Sweet 19, Smile, Martha and the Motels,
Martha Davis.
Martha and the Motels. That's all it says.
Yeah, Martha Davis and the Motels.
The Scooters, Snap, the Zippers, Cats, and many more too numerous to mention. Our hottest group right now is creating a lot of excitement is Seagull. And he's like, thank you for your time, blah blah blah. So he was mad. He was mad he wasn't mentioned, and he just wanted to prove that that
is a little insulting. It really is a little insulting not to mention him, even though at the time, like you take like 1979, 80, 81, the Starwood compared to Gazari's was apples and oranges at that time. If you did that 10, 15 years earlier, almost the same.
But it's fair to say though that Gazari's wasn't mentioned because at that time it was a dump.
Dump. Yeah, right.
I mean,
When I think of bands that I've seen at Gazari's, I've seen more punk bands, interestingly enough. New wave, I'm going to say new wave and punk bands at Gazari's, almost more than rock bands. They were a great venue for a band to get exposure. They were a great venue for bands to do their thing and just get their legs. Quite literally, it was easy to play Gazari's. My friend Johnny had a band, and they sucked when they first started playing. They were not very good. They were a garage band with the worst vocals you've ever heard, and they played Gazari's. Okay, so and they got a lot better. Johnny ended up being the lead guitar player for Vermin. They opened for Anthrax at the Troubadour for Anthrax's first show. I'm sorry, Megadeth, not Anthrax.
Oh, Megadeth. Wow.
Yeah, and so it's just interesting the way the band's history there. Gazari's, not only did they serve an awesome service to the musicians on the strip, they were there for just in the very beginnings, mid 60s, 65. The Whiskey had been open a year, I think, before they did. The Starwood was open a little before that.
yeah, they opened up at like 6 months before I was born. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember I saw the Plimsolls. The Plimsolls played Gazari's once.
Never heard of them.
And they're huge. Their best show was at the Starwood. Best show for the Plimsolls was the Starwood. But I saw them with like the Plugs. I was another band I saw them with. I used to go see the Go-Go's there. I'd see Fear play there. The Fear and Go-Go's. That's ironic. I saw Circus play there. That's Wasp before Wasp. He was a showcase for bands to get their legs, and the purpose he served was just priceless for the bands. What he did for Van Halen was really nice. I remember the early days when they were trying to get in there. Bill hated those boys. He couldn't stand them. They played too loud. He didn't like their music. But the fact that they had a following and the potential, which proved to be true, to create revenue, which is what Bill Gazari was all about. His entire world was how to get people to come through that door so he could serve them alcohol. And he did try everything he could. And he was successful at it. But it just always seemed that he was on Mario's coattails, trying to one-up him and be a bigger gangster and a bigger this and a bigger that.
Did they ever get along?
They respected one another, but Mario didn't dig him. He didn't dig him.
Oh, okay.
I never heard Mario say a bad word about Bill. But I heard Bill, I'll just say it, motherfucking Mario. He did it all the time. Yeah, there's probably a lot of people out there who've heard Bill Gazari talk shit about Mario, and I've never heard Mario say anything bad about Bill.
So you could kind of equate Gazari's to, if you're talking about comedians, the Comedy Store. Am I wrong that Gazari's was the bands as the Comedy Store was the comics?
Well, actually, the Comedy Store was a very important, never a dump. Comedy Store was never had a bad reputation. Early days of the Comedy Store, it didn't have a bad reputation. It had an infamous reputation. Gang connections, mob, and the other thing. Gus, one of the original doormen, was murdered at the doorway in a mob killing back in the, I want to say early 60s.
What was the lady's name who ran that? What's his
Oh,
name?
that's
Mom.
Pauly Shore's
Polly
mom,
Shore's mom. Minnie or
Missy,
Missy,
Missy Shore. Did I get that right?
Mitzi.
Yeah, Mitzi. Yeah,
Mitzi. Okay.
yeah.
She was on what show, Charles?
She was the owner of the. She was the
No,
owner. The only thing
she was
She was on a
on
show.
a show a long time ago.
I don't remember that.
Oh, I
That
didn't
would
know that.
that would have been before the club. I don't know that,
Popular.
Tony.
It was in the 60s. Yeah. Yeah, right. Anyway.
Probably like Love American Style.
No. This would have had to be. It would have had to be original television
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
because she managed and controlled that. When she ended up divorcing her husband, she got complete control of that club, or almost complete control. And I'd have to think about all the details, but that's Hollywood lore right there.
So that wasn't really a good comparison then. The
Not
comedy
at
club
all.
to okay.
A good comparison would maybe be like a club lingerie.
Oh, cool! Look at that. Oh, club
Lingerie was open for a little while. It was a come and go kind of a club deal. There were a bunch of clubs that came and went. And that's not, that nothing. Gazari's never fit that bill. I actually thought Gazari's would be there forever.
Huh.
I really did. I couldn't believe it that it was gone. I figured, it's interesting. Bill didn't have the family to take it over and give it its next life. Yet the whiskey, the Roxy, and the Rainbow did.
Yeah. Van Halen, it's a shame that all these clubs aren't there anymore, Charles, and there's buildings that are still there, but once Van Halen things happened quickly once 1977 got here. Yeah, things started happening very quickly at that point, and they were off. But the whiskey, they started at Gazari's and ended up at the whiskey. But where they played along the way, the Pasadena Civic, the high schools, the Pomona Club up Walter Mitty's. Yeah. Yeah.
I got to go there one time.
There was a date. There was a date or two, like at the country club or something, but they started getting dates once they got to the whiskey. Things really started to, if you look at those, the history of those dates and those gigs. But it all started at Gazari's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been that long, 50 years. Good night. Guys, we're gonna wind things down at this point. We appreciate everybody hanging out tonight. Hope your springtime is going good. We enjoyed having a look back at the club days of Van Halen, and this 50-year anniversary for them being in clubs all happened April of 1974. Yeah, goodness.
Interesting. You know what else happened in 74?
Gas prices.
Deep Purple live with Glenn Hughes playing. They did a live album made in Europe Glenn Hughes, bass player, and Ian and David Coverdale was their lead singer then at the time.
Oh,
Right.
God, that was my favorite album for like 4 years straight. My brother,
1974.
I was 13 years old listening to Glenn Hughes play the bass. He was and still is probably one of my very most favorite bass players of all time. Period.
Right.
Tony, you were what, 7?
Yeah. I was a Kiss kid, though.
Me too. I was 7.
I was a young Kiss kid, so that's cool. I discovered Kiss in '74.
Not me. I
It's
was.
nice to
I
remember
was
where you
Elvis.
were when you were
Elvis.
14.
All right,
You know,
we're gonna wind things down, and we're gonna open up too many cans of worms here. Let's guys and girls, thanks for being here. Let me say a couple of things, Charles, before we get going here. Before I forget or get sidetracked again, everybody leave a thumbs up here on the video if you would. Before you leave, no need to leave now. This Saturday, we're going to be hanging out here at 9 p.m. Eastern, talking guitar picks and rock memorabilia. And this weekend, we're talking Pat Benatar right here.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's Show Me Your Picks
Saturday.
That's episode 194. Yeah, and that'll be Saturday night. We'll be joined by Brendan B. Squared. Couldn't be with us tonight, but sends his love to all of us. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a Van Halen fan. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. Yeah. Any last words, Charles Greene?
guys, this is Halenville. Around here, it doesn't matter if you go north, south, east, or west. Every single road is going to lead you to Van Halen, you guys. Have a great week. Be well. Don't forget to rock on. Take care, you guys.